So one of the things that stands out to me from the official final California curriculum is that some of the core lessons that it advocates giving are lessons about narratives. And that should already sound familiar to you because Nikos was just talking to us about this idea of meta narratives, that everything is just a narrative. We can't
Micro
know reality.
narratives.
Micro narratives. I apologize. There's a lot of something narratives in this topic. So yeah, so this lesson, which is one of the foundational lessons for the suggested course, is to learn about narratives and to learn specifically about the difference between a dominant narrative and a counter narrative. What is this supposed to mean? A dominant narrative is a narrative that supports the interests of powerful people in a society. And a counter narrative is a narrative that we bring up to fight back against the dominant narrative, to elevate people who are more oppressed or marginalized. That's the idea. Now, what struck me about this lesson was not so much, okay, they're talking about narratives. I could see a value of talking about narratives in like a media literacy class. Okay, there's people are describing something in this way. How do you determine if it's true? How do you determine whether the narrative is capturing all of the relevant facts? Something like that. But this lesson is not about truth or about facts. It's not about analyzing a narrative to determine whether it's true. It's entirely focused on who does this narrative benefit and who does it hurt. And that's the basis on which you're supposed to judge whether you should promote one narrative or another. And the idea, of course, from the ethnic studies perspective is you should challenge narratives, oppose narratives that benefit powerful people, vaguely defined as they always do, and support narratives that empower marginalized people. But that's a totally anti-reality way of assessing any claim or any narrative. It's not concerned with the truth. It's concerned with somebody gives this narrative, somebody else gives that narrative. How do we adjudicate between them? And this is not just some marginal aspect of the curriculum. This is like a core concept that's put forward early in the course as the California Department of Education is suggesting, and that is then used in a lot of the other lessons.
And one comment here, Sam, is this is typical in all the nationalist educational systems. Like, I'm familiar with these things from the Balkan, right? Like, the question in history is not, did this happen or not? The question is, if we present it this way, is it good for us Greeks, or is this good for Mother Serbia? So the question again is not, is it true? The question is it good for the group? And my question is this: why is it that when it comes to nationalism, we recognize that this is dangerous? We recognize that an educational system which judges reality or judges facts or ideas based on whether they are good for Mother Serbia or Mother Greece, we recognize that this is bad and dangerous. We recognize that this is going to give rise to young nationalists, or at least people have free will, of course, but it will encourage the creation of more nationalists. And why is it then that in this case we don't recognize that that the same educational method, basically, which says true is what is good for the group, the truth of a narrative or the way we evaluate a narrative is who is it good for? Why aren't we worrying that this is going to give rise to a new generation of tribalists? It will encourage a new generation, more and more people who view the world in this parochial, tribalistic way. My group versus your group, my culture versus your culture. It's like there's so much possibility in the world today, and these kids will be constantly encouraged to view themselves through the prism of their identity. Like, I'm part of this culture, now I have to learn about my culture, and I have to, in the original curriculum, there's this idea of affirming knowledge, right? But the story of the role of history is not to affirm. The story of history, the role of history is to teach you. The last thing the kids need is to have their prejudices affirmed where these prejudices are not true. So again, Sam, we come to the same point. From any perspective, pedagogically, epistemologically, this mindset that ethnic studies create, and again, we judge it based on their own words in the curriculum, is actually, it's not even neutral, it's dangerous. It's bad for the students.